Hello, my friends. Jacob's here once again for another outstanding live stream. Hope you're doing amazing. I hope you're all having a great old time in the chat. Do me a favor, make sure that the sound is okay. Tell me if things are a little too loud, if they're too staticky, or, sometimes the whole thing, it acts a little funny, the world, right? This internet of things that we're in. It's a crazy, crazy time. Crazy, crazy time. Crazy, crazy time. I'm happy that you're all here. Do me a favor in the live chat. Tell me if you can hear me okay, because we have a lot to get into. Take a look at this thumbnail. My goodness gracious. Okay. It's one of those things, right? Very strange to look at. You got the queen bee, right? We've talked a lot about the bee, which is also the trident, which is also the fleur-de-lis, which is a lot of things. Queen bee, Beyonce, coming out with her new album to get into. Take a look at this thumbnail. Very shortly, it's coming out. Okay, so Celestial Piper tells me that the sound is great, so the program can begin. And I'm so excited that you're here because I did a lot of digging, and I found a lot of stuff out. A lot of interesting things. A lot of people sent me this picture. Let me pull up the picture of the British Vogue magazine where you had Queen Bee herself on the old red horse of the apocalypse, which is people are like, oh, you're going to talk about the horses, right? You're going to talk about the horse of the apocalypse. This is something that you've talked about on the show many times. Of course I have. It's been there for a long time. I did a show, like 3 months ago. I know some people are going to be like, oh, you're always talking about yourself again. Well, it's relevant for the show, so just deal with it. But yes, 3 months ago, I told everybody, you're going to hear about and see about the four horsemen of the apocalypse. I asked if Zelensky, whose name means green, if this was the pale horse of the apocalypse, the green horse of the apocalypse. So, of course, when we have Beyonce coming out on her new cover of the British Vogue magazine, people are drawing the conclusion, they're like, it's the red horse. This is a bad thing. But I'm telling you, it's a lot more than just the bad horse. By the way, I want to point this out. Look at the O and the G. Do you see that there? Very strange, right? Look at the headdress and how it goes through. Makes looks like two little sixes. That's why I came up with this thumbnail right here. Yeah. The sixes are going to actually come into play in a big moment. It's so strange, but it's gonna blow you away. So she has an album coming out. So of course this was to kind of promote her album. But once again, it's a little more than just it being the end times. Of course, there's a lot of videos out already. Everybody's talking about the return of the red horse. Is Beyonce telling us the red horse of Revelation 6 is coming? This whole thing in Revelation, it's actually very spiritual and very personal. So yes, it's happening. And yes, we'll see things happening in the world that are quite as strange. But I don't want anybody to fret. You may fret when we get towards the end of the show, because a lot of things are going to start to tie together. It's weird, okay? It's just weird. Let's leave it at that. Okay, let's start off with Revelation 6 so you just know where everybody, if you're new to the channel, we talk about a lot of things that have to do with the faiths of the world, the different ideas that people have. I'm kind of a guy who loves to study and search out the scriptures. You'll hear it called the Bible. Well, in Revelation chapter 6, which was the revelation of Jesus Christ to John, kind of the unveiling of the truth. In chapter 6, there are these horses that come out. And I saw a lamb open one of the seals, and I heard, as it were, the noise of thunder, one beast saying, come and see. I saw and behold, a white horse, and he sat on him, had a bow and a crown. We've talked about all this. how the bow didn't have any arrows and all that. When he opened the second seal, there was a second beast say, "Come and see." And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat on the horse, that red horse, that red wave. Oh, this is going to get good. You better stick around to the end of the show, because I stumbled around onto this one. I don't know how all this happened, but it's there, and now I'm going to share it with you. That the world, should take peace from the earth, and that people are going to go around, they're going to be, boom, it's going to be bad, right? War. Everybody's saying war is coming. Yeah, okay, we get it. But there's more. There's more. Beyonce is coming out with that new album called The Renaissance. We're going to get there in a second. Once again, I've been talking about the horses of the apocalypse. But up there in the top right-hand corner, you'll see, and you'll probably remember, I did a show about the Oscars, the slap heard around the world, Chris Rock, the Rock of Christ, the symbolism of it being hit by the Prince of Bel-Air. If you haven't seen those shows, go back and see it. Go this one right here. But it's all connected, right? That's why I titled this one It's Connected Too, because it's connected to that. So incredibly strange. But you remember, it was the summer of the soul. You'll see there the trident. Another word for the soul is psyche, or nephesh, which you'll find in the Hebrew, psyche, in Greek, the trident, ironically, all connected again. So strange. But that's all right. Beyonce's got her album out. I had to lay the groundwork about the soul. This is her first album. You know that they love that number, right? That six number. The number of man, by the way. It's the number of a man. Some people like to point out carbon-based life forms, 6 electrons, protons, and 6 neutrons, 666. I like to point out the internet, www.666. You got 666 everywhere. Biden, I don't care if it gets done in 6 this, 6 that, 6 this, right? Well, Beyonce's album, of course, it's the first one released in 6 years. 6 years. Today, did you know today's the solstice, the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, or something like that? I'm not into all that pagan druid stuff. If you are, it's cool. Whatever. We're going to talk about it in a second. But today, the single from Beyonce's new album dropped. And fans are loving the upbeat track. Her new track is called Break My Soul. Interesting. Break My Soul. And the song goes on, you won't break my soul, you won't break my soul. Soul, nephesh, psyche, the trident. The 23rd letter in the Greek alphabet, I believe it is. I could be wrong, but I find it interesting that her song, Break My Soul, is now out. And it's the number 6th track. You'll see the number 6 right there, right next to it. Anybody in the chat, let me just check in on you. Anybody in the chat hear about this album? We got about 1,000 people watching and barely anybody hit the like. I know, you're here. Do me a favor. As I'm babbling right now, babble, right? Blah, blah, blah. Babylon, baby lion, confusion, blah, 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 666, all of that stuff that we've talked about. As I'm just saying words, hit the like button. It helps me. Gets more people here. I can't tell you how the channel's been stalled. It's been a real bummer. And so this helps. But not many of you have heard about the album. Not many of you have heard about this release of the single. Well, she is kind of popular. So it is kind of becoming mainstream news. So she released it today and people are just starting to comment on it. Now, see, this is where my channel is going to be a little bit different than the other channels. Everybody's just going to point out she's on a red horse. They're telling us what's coming. They're telling us what's coming. Sure, right? It's predictive programming. Sure, why not? But they're telling us a lot more if you dare to dig a little deeper, like I do, like I pray. I forgot to sound the shofar. Maybe I'll do it later. But I do pray. I'm like, what do I got to do next? What's the next show? What do I have to talk about? And of course, thanks to all of you, I get things sent to me. Things that just are unbelievable because you don't know that it's going to connect to something else that was sent to me by somebody else. You don't know. So this comes out today. This is the big thing. Break my soul. You won't break my soul. Soul being symbolic of the things that we're supposed to lay down. We're supposed to lay down our, not my will, but yours be done. There's a scripture that says that you're supposed to go to the rock of Christ, which is the power and wisdom of God. God is love. So you're supposed to, have your foundation built upon Christ. Ironically, in this song that she released, she talks about how she's going to build her own foundation. You won't break my soul. And it sounds like it's a love song or something else, but you could take it spiritually speaking. It's like, you won't break me. I'm going to build my own foundation. I'm going to exalt myself above the heavens. Not saying that that was her intention, even though in her album that she released, you'll see she's dressed quite a bit like the soul of the Queen of Heaven that we've been talking about on this show. But the breaking of the soul is like a big deal. Now, ironically, the one time that it's mentioned in the Old Testament is in Psalm 19. Now, this is all going to make sense, so just stick with me. And I'm not. And by the way, this is the longest psalm in the scriptures. It's also located kind of smack dab in the middle of the Bible. So here's the little Bible trivia for you. What's the longest chapter in the Bible? Psalm 19. What's the Bible chapter that's located directly in the middle of the Bible? It's Psalm 19. Psalm 19, which is an awesome psalm, which talks about your soul breaking. Let me just read this to you. It's very, very interesting. I am a stranger in the earth. Do not hide your commandments from me. Okay, this is the psalmist crying out to God. My soul breaks with longing for your judgments at all times. You rebuke and you rebuke the proud, the cursed. Doesn't seem like the proud are being rebuked, but God rebukes and will rebuke the proud, the stubborn, the stiff-necked. We're getting to that. That's what's coming. That's the good news in all this scariness. But you have to, your soul must break for the Lord. Almost like you have to give up your will for God. You can't say, you won't break my soul, like this song likes to point out. But once again, soul is the psyche. The psyche is the trident. All of these things pointing to the judgment of God. Now, here is Beyonce's, this is a little bit more of the article where she was sitting on the right horse, the red horse. The singer sent shockwaves through her fan base on Thursday when she announced her next album will be called Renaissance. It's an interesting name, don't you think? Renaissance? Now, why is it interesting? Well, that's what I wanted to figure out. Now, this is in conjunction with her doing the British cover of Vogue and all of this stuff, okay? You'll even notice, let me see if I can point this out, because she, her earrings are interesting. I don't know if anybody knows anything about planets, but this is like one of them planets, those, they call it the Illuminati planet Saturn. I'm not saying that's what it is. Just interesting bangles, Beyonce has, dressed up many times, like the Queen of Heaven that we've talked about on the show. And she says that a renaissance is coming. Now, the Renaissance was an interesting time. I don't know if you know how it started or, what really started it. But it was an interesting time, especially probably when you hear the words Renaissance, you think of like all the art, right? Well, Beyonce's releasing this because it's like we're entering into a new Renaissance where like anything's possible. Get it? We don't have to break our soul and our will for the will of God, and for the, we can climb to the heights of heaven. It's about humanism. Ironically, that's what that's what the Renaissance was all about back in the day as well. Very strange, very interesting, very, as I like to say, sus. Renaissance humanism was an intellectual movement typified by a revived interest in classical studies. Let's get away from God. Let's get away from religion. And once again, I'm not saying that, religion the way it is today is a good thing. But I do believe, without a shadow of a doubt, that having faith in more is of absolute importance. And not wanting your soul to be broken so that you can enter into peace and prosperity and unity is probably not the best idea. And the Renaissance was a time where it was like, we're not going to put our faith in the church anymore. We're going to put our interest into what's called humanism. These origins went back, in Italy. There were a lot of artists and authors, and it was a very interesting time indeed. Humanism could be a problem, right? Because humanism basically kind of puts you at the top of the, you're the tippity top. There's nobody, you don't answer to anybody but, who you want to be. That's a problem. That's a problem. And it seems like today that's the direction that everything is going in. Does that mean that that's the direction that we're going to find ourselves in? Maybe not. Maybe for a period of time we're going to see this, but I promise you that faith is going to win out in the end. It has to. It's predetermined. God can't fail. So right now in our lives, if we're having a hard time, know that it's only to break us, to get us to a place where we can return once again to the Lord. This is a big deal. Okay, so the Renaissance. So I start thinking, I should look into the Renaissance. I should look into it, and I should see when it was and really what started it. Ironically, tell me in the chat if you knew this, it was started by this. That's right. That word that starts with a P and ends with an E. They called it the Black Death. This was a big deal, a major contributing factor. It was a pandemic, or a demon of Pan. That's another way of putting it. If you know anything about Pan, you should really be subscribed to the channel. If you don't know it, you're going to learn a lot about myth, and you're going to learn a lot about astronomy, and you're going to learn about artificial everything. Please do me a favor. If you've been watching me for a while and you haven't hit the subscribe button, will you do it, please? Because it'll make these shows go by a lot quicker. I won't have to explain everything to everybody. So this was the big deal. This was a big deal. This is what it all started. Big Daddy's already asking, when did the Renaissance start? That's right. I'm in the chat looking at you all as you're moving around there. You're going to see. You're going to see. And you're going to see. And some people do believe, as Slick Rock is saying, that AI is affecting our reality. I wouldn't doubt it. Actually, Elon Musk put out a tweet just yesterday about how do you know you're not in a computer already? Listen, that's another show. I have a whole playlist if you're into all that simulation theory. But this was the trigger. This was the trigger. Now, ironically, because of course God confirms things in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, you won't just find something coincidental. You'll have to find something else that's tied to it. So ironically, at the same time that I'm looking into, the Black Death and all this stuff, which, by the way, do you know where it had its roots? Check this out. This is today's news. This just came out this week. ancient DNA is pointing to where the Black Death began. Medieval villages of northern Kyrgyzstan. Kyrgyzstan, that's the way you say it? I don't think I'm pronouncing it right. It's another thing I do on the channel is I don't bother to learn how to pronounce things because I try to just enjoy myself in life. So that would be like the Black Death is coming from the Ruskies. I mean, that's just a little coincidental. Or some other places they say it could be over here, but ancient DNA points to this. They actually found like these little tombstones from when this happened. So you had this plague that began this great Renaissance, which was a restart. Interesting timing. If it was 666 years ago, don't you think? That would be weird. And that's what I was thinking. I'm like, wow, how great would it be if the Black Death, that one stopped 660, something like that years from when the other one that we're dealing with began. Interesting. I don't know. Well, let's take a look. Let's see when it ended. Estimates have it started around 1346 to 1353. It was the most fatal one recorded in human history. A lot of people passing. It's a terrible thing. A lot of people passing. Terrible thing. So we saw that when it ended, 1353, and this is when the first one was kind of diagnosed, put out there. The first one is 2019. 2019 minus 1353. Take a wild guess how many years you get. Bada bing, bada boom. Come on. That's interesting, right? I find it strange. The Renaissance began when that thing just magically disappeared, like somebody we know, the team man said, right? He says, one day it'll just go away, magically disappear, woof! Like it was a big wizard and some spell was cast on everybody and everybody was under the spell until one day it just disappeared. Seems like it disappeared where I am. I'm just saying. Very strange. But you have the end of that one to the beginning of this one, and you got exactly 666 years. Now, you got to tell me, am I reaching? Is that a reach? Tell me in the chat if you found that strange. If you find it strange because Beyonce's album is about the Renaissance. It's about to come out, the Renaissance. She releases her song, Break My Soul. The Oscars, Summer of the Soul, The Soul's the Trident, Psyche. It's about judgment. It's about the judgment of God coming. Very strange. Very strange. And that is right, that the Black Death, it started with fleas. That's what it was, beasts. Very good, Teresa. Telling me in the chat. Okay, and Linda says, no, not reaching. I didn't think it was a reach. I didn't think it was a reach. You could say this is just incredible. Because see, this is what I like to say to people. Because I don't know. A lot of people are going to come and say, this is proof. They knew. They're telling us this is what's coming. And they could be. I don't know. Or God could be revealing it. I don't know. But I do know that when you have one thing that's connected to another thing, that's connected to another thing, in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, all of a sudden God's word is established. So perhaps there is something to this. And now you understand, the connection. The connection. The 66, the red horse. And of course you see the doctors back in the day. How scary was that? A red wave. A red wave. I find it quite interesting. She's releasing her album, and it's just strange timing, especially because the Renaissance was all about, it's about, kind of edging the idea of God out of the equation. we're going to start putting our faith in man's ability, right? Really, they're putting in the AI's ability. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do? So you have it. It's just incredibly strange because there is nothing new under the sun. And there is a red wave coming. A red wave coming. Which, ironically, was tweeted by the old Musker. Elon Musk, he put it out. And I think it's very cool because I, of course, connected it right to the Egyptians. See where this is all going now? All of a sudden, there's a spiritual message, a red wave. But there could be more than just that. Could be more than just a red wave of like, the Egyptians are getting wiped out, evil's getting wiped out. Could be another type of a wave that has nothing to do with the Republican Party. Could be another type of government that is known to be red. And perhaps God uses this red horse of the apocalypse to bring judgment on the perversion and the corruption of Egypt. Once again, I'm not saying that I think that that's the truth because I don't know. I just think like I'm a speculator. I start to think the red horse, the red this, right? The Red Sea, the red wave. All those sheep that drowned, right? I just did the show. If you haven't seen that show, go back and check it out. It's like probably from a couple of days ago. All of those sheep drowning in the Red Sea. All of this coming out at the same time. Elon putting out this, it's the first time he voted. He was also little by little trying to remind everybody, you're no longer a Democrat. You're no longer a Democrat, right? He was showing everybody those memes wherever he was leaving one side to go to the other side. But you're still part of the two-sided coin. You're still part of the paradigm. You just think that you're leaving one for the other. That slaughterhouse picture, right? With the sheep looking Republican and Democrat, but they both lead to the slaughterhouse. It's okay. That's where we go to get our soul broken. That's where the judgment of God begins, right? In us. This is where the judgment of God begins. The judgment of God begins at the house of the Lord. We're the house of the Lord. Everybody's waiting for stuff outside of them. It's starting here. And what's outside is, helps what's going on in here. So a massive red wave is coming. The Egyptians are about to be... See, here's the problem. Israel was released from Egypt and they were in the wilderness, and it wasn't that fun. They were wandering around. They missed the flesh pots. I miss Applebee's. I miss the breadsticks at that other restaurant. When I was a kid, I was pretty poor, and I remember thinking Red Lobster. I say this every time we drive by Red Lobster. I always tell my kids and my wife. I say I always thought that's where the Red Lobster was where all the rich people went, and now I wouldn't eat there. Not that I'm rich. But not a big fan. Not a big fan. But it's amazing how our minds work, So this red wave is coming. He tweeted it out. Now, I'm just going to point out that he is also right now in the news because someone's saying that he's part of this pyramid scheme with Dogecoin. I was @Jacobed by Mr. Kreider over there. Now, I'm not saying that it is, because I hope not. I own Doge. I'm not telling you what you should do. I don't own that much. I'm not the smartest guy, but, I long time ago, I felt like maybe I should, and I did. So I put out a tweet about that saying, maybe he really isn't scamming anybody. Maybe it's going to be something. Maybe, and then like a day later, he put out a tweet where he says, I will keep supporting Dogecoin. And Nadia pointed out to me on June 19th, totally trolling you, which I find funny. I don't really believe he is, okay? I think it would be cool if somebody with influence was watching my channel, because I know that the word of God is like a seed, and when it's cast into it doesn't return void. The seed is cast into the world, doesn't return void. It brings the harvest that it's meant to bring with it. Doesn't return void. It accomplishes what it was sent into the world to do. So I'm hoping he's watching. right? So he wrote out, I will keep supporting Dogecoin, which was kind of strange because I said, I don't think he's the kind of guy that would do such a thing, but I don't know him. You know, I want to think the best in people. And then I wrote, or Elon does really care and he believes in Dogecoin to the moon, hence reminding everyone not to think the worst. And I hope it's the latter. Now, it's going to sound like I'm a big fan of Elon's. That's the weird thing about me, is that I like a lot of these people, but I'm also totally suspect of them. Like really suspect of them. But I understand also that God uses not the best people sometimes to bring judgment to other people, if that's his will. So, is a red wave coming? He says that there is. He put that out in a tweet. Very strange, especially since he's connected to, you know, he's connected to China, which is, you know, very powerful country that is very influential and pretty much everywhere in the world today. So this was, I believe this was today's news in Time. He says bots aren't the problem for Twitter, are a problem for the Twitter deal, not China. So it's not China. China's not the problem. China's known as the dragon. He's a SpaceX dragon. Guess who's a big investor in Twitter? Guess who the big investor is for Elon? This was reported a little while ago that you got a lot of these companies that are, you know, investors in Twitter. You know how people say, I know this for a shadow of a doubt, and this is all the way it is, and I don't. I got to be honest, I don't. I can tell you the things of God. I know them to be true, but I don't. In the grand scheme of things, I don't really know. But what I do think about sometimes is whether or not that country's already in charge, and that this is just basically, okay, now it's go time. This is what we're going to do, right? Because you have communism pretty much everywhere. And we know that I believe Elon may kind of be leaning towards that idea, but not in the bad way, supposedly he says. And you know, Grimes, his girlfriend or his partner with their 2 children that are named, you know, ex-archangel something. I don't know their names very, very off the top of my head, but they're incredibly interesting. She was reading the Communist Manifesto, walking down the street, and it made major headlines. And you know, that's all about you owning nothing and being happy, right? And you know, all those magazines are pointing out everybody going into VR in their little boxes, right? These little eco homes. Remember the Super Bowl with the little eco homes that they showed? I did a whole show about this. This could be the direction that we're going, right? God saying, let my people go. In Egypt saying, Pharaoh saying, nope, we're going to make things harder for them. That's what we're going to do. We're going to make things harder. So what has to happen is you have to put the blood over the door, right? The angel of death comes, right? There you have that red wave again, the wave of death. Egypt, the red wave. All of it's very symbolic of the evil in man being put down. All of it's very symbolic. But in the literal world, I wonder sometimes if perhaps we're already headed towards a social credit system and this, that, and the other thing. You know, I saw a country, I believe I may be wrong, could be like Finland or Denmark or something, but some country, or no, it was Japan. That's who it was. Japan just made like a law that if you bully somebody online or offend somebody, that you can get arrested and go to jail. So look that up. Okay, that's not what this show's about, but this is the point. Now you look at these things and you say how awful, how terrible, but you know what else is awful and terrible? Hurting people's feelings, putting them down, attacking them, trolling them, doing horrible things to them. I am not for censorship, obviously. I have to be very careful how I talk, but I don't do anything that's harmful. I don't want to harm anybody. I don't want to hurt anybody. I want to encourage people. I want the world to be a better place. But it doesn't seem like other people want that. So maybe sometimes God uses, powerful organizations, countries, nations, maybe not the best leaders to tear down all the things that you put your faith in, like all those statues, right? Take away all those amendments and the constitutions and all these things that we worship. Make your lives a little bit harder. Make it harder for you to do this or that or any. It's a terrible, terrible thing, I see. But also, is it not that God's orchestrating everything? So maybe there's a like kind of an end game to all of this. So this red wave that's coming, maybe they're not really talking about just the Republican Party. Maybe the red wave that they've been talking about, remember it started, we hear about it for many years, but really you heard a little bit about it in 2018. Now you're starting to hear it a lot because people that have unseated other people that was like a Democratic seat for like ever. And then all of a sudden, boom, somebody probably without qualifications took it, the red wave. It's very strange, especially when you see companies like this linked to him and linked to the guy that he looks like he's red. He got the red hat. By the way, Truth Social, there was news about that being connected to China, which is, I think it's interesting. The Truth Social, when you look at they're not called tweets, they're called truths, right? So here's the truth. I find it interesting because a lot of people are lying on there. So that's the world we're in. Well, it's not that bad, okay? It's not that bad. And I do think that when you see all of this stuff happening, like the Great Renaissance is coming, the Great Reset is coming, and it's been 666 years since this all went down, maybe there's something to it. You want a little bit of hope. Somebody sent this to me on Twitter. It's a Beekeeper Bear Salon. That's an interesting Twitter handle. And, now Noah was the very first. That's my son. Noah sends me so much stuff before any of you ever get it to me because he's like a producer on the show. He's always helping because he's interested in the things that we talk about here. And so he sent this to me. I kind of, I laughed it off at first because I didn't think it was really him. I was like, wow, what is this? Is this like people are making jokes? Then I saw like Donut just did the show where he made some connections with, or he said other people made connections about how this was the Abbey Roads cover. This is a continental, crosswalk, and it was McCarthy's birthday, and there's a lot of interesting little stuff that's tied together there, which I find interesting, but not something that I feel like is spiritually helping me out. But what did help me out with this story was where it actually took place. Rehoboth Beach. Very interesting. So, of course, you've heard that he fell off. He fell. It happens, It happens. These things are, when you get older in life, it's not the easiest to age. I'm 51, and I'm not that old. But I got to tell you something, it's not the easiest. It really isn't. Everything's hurting. I can't even go. We were going to a basketball game in Queens, and it was like a 2-hour drive because of traffic and everything else. And man, by the time I couldn't even like walk. My knee was messed up. My back was messed up. Sitting in one place, it's not the best for me. So could you imagine this guy? He's much older. So him falling, and of course Trump did a whole thing where, he was speaking at an event and he said he promises he'll never ride a bicycle. It's very funny. These are all endearing people. Whether or not they have our best interest in mind, I'm not too sure. I don't think so. But you never know. But what I do know is God is making a way. And how do I know this? Because I said when Biden came in, I said, we're biding our time. Remember that? We're biding our time. I said it. Told everybody that. Trying to get the music right with my little sound system. I like this. This is Unicorn Heads, by the way. They're on YouTube Studio, the music. Great band. And I just love their music, and I like sharing. I like music. It helps me when I talk, and it helps me when I think. So I hope you're okay with it. Rehoboth Beach. It's in the Bible. And it's actually, there's a well. The well was dug there. And it actually means broad open space. We're biding our time. Remember? Trump was cut down like Nebuchadnezzar, but the root was left in the earth. Remember? I did these shows where I explained he's going to lose. Everything's going to be taken away. It's going to look like he's done for. Then we're going to get another guy who's going to come in here. We're going to be biding our time, right? It's going to make things a lot worse. So much so that everybody who hated the first guy is going to love the first guy if the guy comes back. But maybe that doesn't happen. I don't know. But ironically, he fell on the broad road. Broad is the way in the path to destruction. It's the broad open space. But ironically, that's where the well was actually dug. God's made a place for us. And that's why it's like we shouldn't be too stressed about all this. We should be looking for that silver lining in the clouds. Looking for it because it's there. It's there. Renaissance wasn't the worst time ever. We got beautiful works of art, right? It's led us to where we are now. Maybe God knows what he's doing. Maybe evil, they think that they're in charge, but yet God uses this evil for our good, for those that serve God, for those that love the Lord. So this is from Genesis 26, okay? Now, this would be Jacob's father, Isaac. This would be like Dad if I was Jacob. Jacob's grandfather, Abraham, everybody lived a lot longer back then, too, by the way. He was the first one. There was no Bible. There was no New Testament. There was no nothing. Everybody always says, it's like, oh, that's the word. It's this. And I try to explain to people it's a book that talks about the word and expresses the word. It's the scriptures. But they didn't have scripture. Abraham didn't. He was the father of many nations. Isaac didn't have scriptures. Neither did Jacob. I'm going down the line. I mean, really, Moses was the one that really got things going. There were other holy books, but this is not up for debate anymore after some of the recent discoveries. So in Genesis 26, so Isaac's now leaving one land, he's moving to another. Now there was a famine in the land, besides the first famine that was in the days of Abraham and Isaac. And Isaac went to Abimelech, the king of the Philistines. There was a famine. Now there's another famine. You'll notice that in Scripture, a lot of things happen and then they happen again. It's almost like it's a script that just continues to play out to get each generation where it goes. Same players, if you will. The Scriptures actually talk about the final judgment where everybody's here. Everybody's here at this last moment. And what a day that is, right? So, the Lord appeared to him and said, "Do not go down to Egypt, live in the land which I shall tell you." By the way, this land was very close to Nineveh. "Dwell in this land, and I'll be with you, and I'll bless you. For to you and your descendants I will give you these lands." Listen to that. I want you to dwell here for a time. But I promise you, right? Don't go into Egypt. Get out of Egypt, all right? Get out of the system. Babylon has fallen. Get out of Babylon. That's what God is saying. Just hang out where you are. And I promise you it's going to be okay. I'll make your descendants, and I'll multiply them as the stars of heaven. I will give to your descendants all these lands, and in your seed all the nations of the earth will be blessed, because Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. So Isaac dwelt in Gerar. And the men of that place asked him about his wife. Now this is interesting, because Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, they all had good-looking ladies. Abraham, same thing. He told people that's my sister, it's not my wife, because he was worried that they would kill him and take the wife for theirs. Same thing with Isaac, same story. It's very strange. There's a spiritual meaning. I'm not going to get into it at this point. But as the story goes on, so he tells, he says, "No, that's my sister." But then Abimelech, the king, catches on, and he knows that they played a game with him. So he went to Isaac, And he said, "What is this that you've done to us? One of the people might soon have lain with your wife, and you would have brought guilt upon us," because they understood that this guy was, blessed by the Lord. And you don't want to be laying with the man's wife, because God will correct you. And so he really was setting them up for failure by not saying, "Look, it's my wife." And he was thinking the worst. He was thinking they were going to kill him, but they weren't going to kill him. So Abimelech charged all his people, saying, "Whoever touches this man or his wife shall surely be put to death." So the exact opposite. The system didn't want the guy dead because they knew that God's hand was on his life, which is what I'm trying to think about in my own life, especially when you see things and you're like, "Oh, persecution's coming to the church." Maybe persecution's coming to a bad religious system, and maybe not those that are serving God. But I don't know, because I want to think the best. I don't want to think the worst. Jacob thought Esau was going to kill him his whole time. And then when he finally gets face to face with Esau, Esau's like, "I don't want nothing from you." And Jacob realized that even his enemy was God, that everything was working together for his good. So Isaac sowed in the land and reaped the same year 100-fold. It's kind of like, the one time that my YouTube channel blew up. All of a sudden, I sowed and I sowed and sowed, and then all of a sudden, boom, 1 year, here we go. Based on a dream, all of a sudden, here you all are. And I hope that you share and subscribe and tell people so more people come, because right now the growth is kind of not going anywhere. But it is what it is. Then the Philistines stopped up all the wells. That's a big deal. That's where they got the water from. Spiritually speaking, it would be like, the Philistines, all these wells that were dug in the name of the Lord. They were all filled up, so you couldn't get access to God anymore. Spiritually speaking, that's what we're talking about. So now Isaac's told, "Go down here," and his servants are trying to build these, dig these wells. They go down into the valley. The valley's a low place. It's kind of like we all go to a low place, and that's where you dig your well. That's where you dig in. You put your bootstraps in. You go, "Okay, Lord, teach me." And you try to do the best that you can, try to encourage people. You dig in that well. "Teach me the truth no matter what the cost." That's the shirt, by the way. That's the shirt, which I like wearing the new merchandise, because I don't have to worry about what I'm going to put on, because I want to look nice for you. This is a big deal to come on, and I appreciate all of you. Teach me the truth no matter what the cost. It's available in the links of the video. You can go to the I have a store, and you can go there and you can get that. You can get the Uranus is a Planet mug, and it helps. I don't take on sponsors or anything else, so it does help. Teespring is really awesome, and a lot of you really have made my life so much better, because you're getting stuff like this. So thank you for that, and thank you for those who support me. So they stopped up all the wells, and now God's like, you need to go down there. And so Isaac and his servants, they started digging these wells. The first well, they dig. Okay, great, there's water, but the problem is the herdsmen that were already there were like, no, that's ours. This is our territory. You can't go on Christian TV. You can't. We're not going to let you on TBN, right? That well, that's our well. And then he goes to another well, and it's like, "Oh, there's water there," and it's like, no, that's ours. The herdsmen say. So you know what ends up happening? Let me just read this to you. Because this is beautiful. Okay, so Isaac's servants dug in the valley. This is verse 19, and they found a well of running water there. But the herdsmen of Gerar quarreled with the herdsmen of Isaac, saying, "This water is ours." So he called the name of the well Esek, because they quarreled with him. Then he dug another well, and they quarreled over that one too. So he called its name Sitnah. All right, because that's a cool name, I guess. Now it means contention, actually. And he moved from there and dug another well, and they did not quarrel over it. So he called its name Rehoboth, because he said, "For now the Lord has made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land." Wasn't welcome over there. I wasn't welcome over there. Censored on Facebook, censored on Google. Oh, by the way, I'm going to do it right now, because a lot of people say that they're "Oh, you come up." I don't. I still don't. But God made a place for me here on YouTube. He made a place for you where you are in your life. God made a place for us. Maybe we're not welcome here. Maybe we're not welcome there. But in that place, that's when the leader of the free world falls on the broad way in front of everybody, for everybody to see. But God has made a place for us. And that's what matters the most. That's why we need to remember that if God is for us, who can be against us? You know, that's a big deal. When you got the living God on your side, what shall stand in your way? Nothing. So let's not think the worst. All of this stuff, it's playing out, right? It's playing out right before. Break my soul. You're not going to break my soul. Summer of Soul, Psyche, Trident, Fleur-de-Lis, all this stuff. So cool. Red Horse of the Apocalypse, red, the red wave, red. All of this stuff, so cool. So cool. We're all playing the part that God had given us to play, and we're also the central character of the story that God gave us to share with the world. We're supposed to be living epistles, all right? Living epistles. You should be able to know the Lord when you know me, and I hope you're doing that in your life. And I thank each and every one of you. Let me come on over here before I go, just to say goodbye to some of you. And I want to thank you all for coming. We got like 1,500 people watching, almost 1,000. Can we get 1,000 likes before I go off the air? Can we do that? Is that possible? Is that possible today? It would be very helpful. It would be very helpful. I would really appreciate it. Yes, we are biding our time. Yet it biding our time. Isn't that cool? A lot of stuff coming out about him. A lot of stuff coming out about him. And we just hit 1,000 likes. See, that's what I mean. All of you are so awesome. And it's like, you didn't have to do that. You could sit back and be like, what does this guy need this like for? You got no idea. If not for the likes, if not for the shares, this would be an effect that would reach very few people. Many of you are here all the time, day in, day out. So many of you have become like my own family. I know you. I know your stories. I get your emails. I appreciate you. I love you. I'm grateful for you. But without your help, this is going nowhere. God made a place for me with you. He made a place with you with me. We're all in this together, and things are going to be better. I promise you. I love you, and I'm gonna say goodbye. And I got Danielle's. She has her end of the year. She's a teacher, it's the best teacher ever. Her end of the year party is tonight. So if my knee was better, I'd be dancing. I like to dance. I'm a good dancer. I'll tell you what. If this hits 50,000 views, this hits 50,000 views in a week. We'll give it a week, all right? And that's not that far from, we average between 30 and like 55,000, I guess, weekly. This hits 50,000 views, I will dance for you. Not that anybody wants to see it, but I will. All right. Thank you very much. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, tell your friends, do all that stuff. Have the best day ever. I love you, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.